Hi everyone. Lovely to be here with you today. And for those of you who are watching the recording, thank you for taking the time um, to listen and watch this presentation for you today. So this is the first in a series of 5 sessions that we're going to be running over the next 5 months. So we'll be running a session every month, and they're going to be from 7 till 9:30 p.m. hosted by myself, Tony, and my colleague Jenny. And also Katie will be with us as well, just to provide a little bit of support if and when necessary. Um, okay, so we've got 2.5 hours for today, and we are recording the session, but we'll be pausing the session if and when people want to share personal information. So just to start off with the agenda for today, we'll start off with a short grounding noticing practice and just to go over the group agreement. And then we'll be spending some time just getting to know each other, really, sharing whatever information we want to share with each other. We'll have a short break. And then after the first break, we're going to be looking at wise and unwise strategies. So basically habits that we have, habits that are good for us and habits that are maybe not so good for us. So just looking at those things. And we'll have another break. And then after the second break, we're going to be looking at what could help. So looking at the science of anxiety in particular. So what happens when we get anxious, how that affects us both physically and mentally, and looking at some resources. And these resources are summaries taken from a toolkit that we've developed over the past few years, and we'll be sending that toolkit out so you can read in more depth if you want to find out more information about anything that we share with you in these sessions. And then at the end of the session, we'll have another short grounding practice, and we'll be ending the session by 9:30 today. So welcome, Chris, as well. Lovely to have you here with us today. We're just going over the agenda so you haven't missed any of the content so far. Okay, so we'll start off with a short grounding practice. And I'll just guide you through that. And it's just a few minutes for us just to notice how we are. So just to notice how we're feeling, and that could be feeling in the body, any tension, any areas of contraction in the body, and also any thoughts or feelings that we might be carrying with us. So for this practice and for grounding, it's start off with just notice how you're sat, notice your posture. And as you notice your posture, you'll probably find that you start to move a little bit and adjust it. So just finding a posture that's comfortable for you, however that might be. And you can either close your eyes or you leave your eyes open, whatever you prefer. If your eyes are open, just soften your gaze so that you don't get too distracted by things around you. And just notice. Notice what's happening right now from moment to moment. Just resting. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. Just allowing yourself to be here. Noticing the breath, breathing in and breathing out. No need to change the breath, just noticing it as it is. Noticing if you're breathing into the belly or breathing into the chest. Or maybe a bit of both. Noticing the points of contact. So if you're sat in a chair and your feet are on the floor, then just noticing your feet resting on the floor or wherever your feet are resting. And the support underneath the feet. Noticing the thighs and the bum resting on the seat and the support from the seats underneath you. And the breath, breathing in and breathing out. Maybe your mind's distracted and you keep getting drawn into thoughts. And if that's happening, then just accepting the mind is getting distracted. It's just what the mind does. Noticing any thoughts that are present, any feelings, and making space for whatever's there. Bringing the practice to a close. And if your eyes were closed, gently opening your eyes and coming back to the room. Okay, so a short practice there. And the reason why we practice just noticing and just allowing ourselves to ground is that most of the time we're busy doing stuff and we're busy thinking about stuff, and our minds can get so busy that we stop noticing ourselves, we stop noticing how we're feeling, we stop noticing our bodies. And it's actually quite useful to be aware of how we're feeling and how our bodies are, any kind of areas of tension and any areas where we might be feeling relaxed as well. Maybe we're feeling relaxed and good, or maybe we're feeling a little bit tense. And just giving ourselves a few minutes just to notice that allows our body a bit of space just to kind of let go a little bit. And the more we practice it, the easier it is to let go as well. Okay, so moving on. Actually, the other thing as well, the other reason why we practice this is just to provide a little bit of a transition from whatever you were doing before to the workshop today or the session today. So it gives you an opportunity to kind of notice what you're bringing into the session and maybe let go of a little bit of it if it's not necessary. Okay. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Jenny now, just to read through our group agreement.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, so I'm sure you're familiar with working in groups where there's a group agreement, and this is one that we've put together. Please feel free to write in the chat if you feel that we've missed anything out that you would really like to be included, or email us in between times, because we will obviously listen to what our participants want as well as do what we think, what we've decided. So please feel free. So I'll just go through it briefly. So to have good working together, we need to listen and be kind and respect one another, we need to try and be aware of how we're feeling. You don't have to obviously say that out loud, but we do a lot of masking of our feelings for various reasons. So if inside you can just keep a little eye on physical things, which will probably tell you something about your emotional state as well, your feelings. Yeah, we acknowledge that we're on a difficult and complex journey all together, and we really admire you for joining this journey, and we welcome you. Keep on track when you speak and be aware that others may want to speak. We don't have to be quite as aware of that with our very small group this evening. And please keep muted all the time unless you want to speak. And that's because sometimes if we come off mute, we do get feedback loop. So if you can keep muted when you're not speaking, that would be great. Thank you. Do raise your hand, which you find in the, I can't remember what they're called, the doofers along the bottom. Or put in chat if you have something to share. Tony will know what they're called. Tony, what are they called along the bottom? The reactions. Sorry, so you raising your hand is one of the reactions. You need to go back to the other slide, Tony, please. One back. Thank you. So please put in chat if you've got something to share. And what we do is we monitor the chat, and we will read out what you wish to say if you don't feel like actually speaking. This is quite important. We're unable to solve personal issues. So we're not a therapy service. We are actually delivering a course. But obviously, some people wish to say more than others, and however much or however little you wish to share is absolutely fine by us. The above is guidance. There isn't one right way of doing things. And as I said at the beginning, please feel free to add your own things if you think, gosh, they have missed something out, and this is what I think it is. And as Katie said at the beginning, and I think this was before you joined, Helen, is that we are recording these sessions, but when anybody says anything personal, we will cease recording, and there'll be a voice that will say ceasing recording, so you know that your voice isn't being recorded if you don't wish it to be. And I think also Katie's put that in the chat, so I just wanted to make sure that I said that again so that everybody feels safe enough to share what they want to. Okay, thank you, Tony.
Next. Thanks, Jenny. Okay, so what we want to do now is get to know a bit more about you, and we've just popped some questions up here for you to give you a bit of a starter on what to share. And we'll start off by sharing a little bit about ourselves first, and then we'll pause the recording so that you can feel safe about sharing whatever it is that you want to share. So I'll start off. My name is Tony Bamforth, and I live in Tottenham in North London. So a bit about me. I'm really passionate about well-being, and particularly about mental health. And the main reason I'm passionate about it is because I've struggled quite a lot with mental health in my life, and particularly about 10 years ago, I burnt out and I had to take some time off work, and which was a very painful experience, but it started me on a journey to understand myself a bit better, learn my limits, and learn what it is that I needed to be in balance so that I didn't become unwell. I learned also that how mental health affects me physically as well, because my physical health deteriorated quite a lot. So I got a kind of a lived understanding of that, of how that works. So I've become more knowledgeable from my own experience about mental health and what it is that I need to stay well. And I've learned a lot of stuff that I think is useful for other people. So that's really the reason why I'm here today. My challenges is doing the stuff that I know I need to do on a daily basis. I still get it wrong from time to time, but I'm getting better at being kinder to myself. But it's still a challenge. Life is not easy. And it's not fair as well. You know, there are some people who suffer a lot more than others. So, but my challenge is kind of keeping on track. Yeah, so what's important for me about getting the balance right? I know that when I get the balance right, life is just easier for me. It doesn't mean that I don't have difficult things happen. They do, inevitably. I have challenges and I have, you know, things that happen that are painful, but it just makes it a little bit easier when I give myself time and look after myself and do the stuff that I know I need to do. And what I want to get out of attending these sessions, I want to learn from more people about what works for you, because one of the things I've found is that it's really good to talk about this stuff, because I always get more ideas from other people, or I'm reminded about things that I've forgotten about, and I'm like, oh wow, I haven't done that for ages. I need to do that. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with more people and finding out more about you, because I'm very curious about people. That's enough about me. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Jenny to share a bit about yourself, Jenny.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, my name's Jenny Clare, and I live in Kendal, near the Lake District up in Cumbria. And I have lived here for 36 years. So a bit about me. Yeah, I love where I live. I feel very fortunate to live up here. It's very beautiful. I don't know if you know the Lake District, but it's gorgeous and it's very wet. And it's very cold at the moment and it's very wintry. But yeah, spring is starting up here. I don't know if some of you live up north and some down south, but I know the spring starts a little bit later up in, I mean, I'm not exactly in the north, I'm in the northwest, but I'm really enjoying the fact that there is some snowdrops out. And I even saw some blossom, that very early blossom, when I was out for a walk yesterday, which was such a beautiful sight. It really was. It really, really gladdened my heart. And one of the reasons why I'm really talking about the spring is because one of my challenges is that I struggle with the winter. I struggle with seasonal affective depression. And so I do find the winter months much harder than the summer months. There is a winter Jenny and there's a summer Jenny. And as it's February now, almost, I am still pretty wintry. And this has eased over the years. It depends on various things, but it is a big challenge in my life because I know that I will drop in the winter, whatever I do. And so I need to be very gentle with myself in the winter. And that is what is important about getting the balance right. And I don't always do that. But as I say, as the years roll by, I have a lot of different strategies. So over the years, I have done things like learnt meditation. I've done mindfulness courses. About 4 winters ago, I started cold water swimming because a friend said, oh, I know a doctor who says cold water swimming is so good for seasonal affective depression. So, are you joking? You know, I hate swimming and I hate cold water. And she said, no, I've heard that it's really good for you. And I thought, right, I'll do anything to help this depression in the winter. So now I am a cold winter swimmer. And now I am a cold winter dipper, to be honest. I don't go in for very long in this weather because it is very, very cold. But it helps. It's something it does give you a burst of adrenaline and serotonin and dopamine. So yeah, so that is really important for me at this time of the year, is to attempt to be gentle with myself. What do I want to get out of attending these sessions? I would like to get to know more about you, the participants. As Tony said, I'm very curious about the human condition. And also, when Tony and Katie introduce themselves, I get to know more about them. And although they've been my work colleagues for 18 months, there's always new things to know about people. So I'm really looking forward to what other people have to say and what I can learn from it, basically, because everyone has their own wisdom. And it's amazing to have the opportunity to listen to what other people have to say. So that's me. Thanks, Tony. I'll hand over to Katie.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Katie Clark. I'm one of the co-founders of Bringing Us Together. And I live up in Halifax. It's a beautiful, beautiful area. We've had some wonderful sunrises and it's just on the doorstep. So I just have to walk for about, not literally on the doorstep, but I walk for about 10 minutes. And there's this big open space and there's been really stunning, so not sunsets, sunrises, just this last week. So yeah, that's one thing that's important to me, is connecting with nature and walking my dog Ted, who's unpredictable. So I have to have him on the lead all the time, and I have to warn other dog owners. And I have to have him on a very short lead with biscuits. And I shout out to other dog owners, he's unpredictable, hoping that they put their dog on the lead. I have 6 children, and my biggest teacher has been my disabled daughter. And she's moved out, but even so, she still reminds me how to be a better parent. All the time. We went out to a gig on Monday, actually, in Leeds. We love music. All my family love music. And she's constantly reminding me and prompting me, telling me to calm down. Yeah. Another thing I love is good films, not rubbishy films. I don't like action films. I don't like any film where there's something frightening going on or a killing. Can't watch anything scary. Like Doctor Who is too scary for me. My challenges are I do far too much. But I do find time to do my morning walks. I do far too much, and I work too much. And what's important about getting the balance right is just that, not working so much. And squeezing in. Actually, Tony, when you started this, I was thinking, this is really good. And the meditation bit you did, because the grounding, when we first started doing these sessions together 18 months ago, I couldn't do the grounding. And now, Tony, I was a bit critical about the grounding. I was saying parents of disabled children would, are too busy to do the grounding. It's too hard to relax. And now, Tony, I could do it for I just want you to carry it on. And what do I want to get out of attending these sessions? As I'm always learning, and I just love being with Tony and Jenny and hearing their wonderful, calm voices. And I hope that the rest of you on this as well also enjoy being here, and just time for us in our busy, chaotic lives bringing up disabled children. Thanks, Tony. I'm going to just switch off the recording. Pause recording.
So welcome back, everybody, and thank you for sharing where you're at with us, what's going on for you, your challenges, and what's important about getting the balance right for you. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about what we do. And what I mean by that is our habits or strategies, if you will. So things that we do that are helpful. And we've split those up into two groups. There are things that we do that are wise, things that, you know, to help us cope with situations that are actually helpful and help us stay on track, and things that are healthy, another way of looking at it. And there are things that we do that maybe are not the best decision, but we do them anyway. So strategies that kind of help us cope, but in the long run are not very, you know, not very good for us. And we're going to share with you some of our strategies. So some of the things that we do, a wise one and an unwise one, and also share with you what happens next. What's the impact of that? And the reason we're doing this is it's an exercise that helps us to reflect on our habits, because oftentimes most of our habits are kind of unconscious and we don't really think about them, even when we know that they're not good or even when we know that they're good. And the benefit of doing this is just it acts as a reminder and gives us an opportunity to think about maybe what could I do differently instead of doing that. So I'll start by sharing with you a wise and an unwise strategy and what the impact of both of those things are. So a wise strategy. So this is something that I've started doing quite recently, actually. I was ill with a cough at the start of the year, and it just seemed to get worse. And then as part of my recovery, I'm feeling much better now, I started eating an orange every day. And it's a really simple thing, but it's something that's like become a bit of a habit now. And the reason it's become a bit of a habit is because it makes me feel better, immediately makes me feel better. And it also, I notice how it's helping me to recover from being unwell. So is a little bit of a shift. So I eat an orange, and what I do is I make time for eating this orange. It takes me about 3 minutes, but I get an orange and I sit on the sofa and I peel it and I enjoy unwrapping this orange, and I enjoy eating it as well. So I'm quite mindful when I do it. I savor each bit of that orange and I notice how I feel, and I enjoy the orange just for those few minutes. And then what happens next is I just feel a bit better about things, and I feel quite proud of myself that I've taken that time just to do something really simple, but that I know is healthy for me and I know is helping me to get better. It's because it's taking too long to get over this cold. It's annoying me now. But eating that orange is something that is that I'm going to continue. And it's like I've decided I'm going to continue doing that now. Even when I get better, I'm still going to have that orange every day because I love oranges. I decided. I've realised, remembered that I love oranges. Okay, so that's the wise thing, and it just helps me feel better. The unwise thing. So one of the things that I do, which I know is really common, is I find myself, I get stuck scrolling on social media. And I do that just kind of to fill the time when I'm feeling a little bit tired, and, you know, just to fill in a bit of time. But I do it to distract myself. And I've noticed that I do it when I'm feeling a bit anxious or when I'm avoiding something. And the impact that has on me, I've noticed, is that it makes me feel more annoyed. I get really annoyed with myself, and then I start to kind of get really reactive. I'll see something and I'll get annoyed with something that I've seen, and I'll get annoyed with myself, and I'll find myself kind of going, oh, I don't want to look at this, but I'm still looking at it, and eventually I'll put it down. But even then, when I put it down, I'll be annoyed with myself because I feel like I've wasted some time in doing something that just doesn't do me any good. Yeah, so that has it's a little thing, but it has can have consequences throughout the day. It's like eating the orange, it puts me on a little bit of a high and makes me feel good, so I'm more relaxed. The scrolling makes me feel anxious and a bit annoyed, and I get all tense, and I can feel that in my body, and I can feel it in my mind as well. Okay. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Jenny now to share one wise and one unwise strategy. So something you do, a habit.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, the wise strategy that I have been doing for, oh gosh, probably about 9 months now, which really does help me to cope with the whole of my life and the rest of my day, is I have a power nap. And it's like a little sleep by any other means, but the course was called the incredible power of power napping. So instead of thinking, oh dear, I've turned into a little old lady, I need to have a sleep every afternoon, I think of it as a power nap, which immediately makes it more positive. And I have a chair where I snuggle down, and I have my comfortable cushions, and I cover myself with a blanket. And if I'm really rushed, I do a 6-minute one. If I'm pretty, doing pretty well and feel like I've got time, I do 20 minutes. And if after 20 minutes I have got time and I'm feeling really quite exhausted, I do another 20 minutes. And if I do those 2 sets of 20 minutes, which I realize I am very lucky to have that time, because I don't have that time every day, and I appreciate that. I live on my own at the moment, so I don't have caring responsibilities for children or grandchildren or anything. That is a very good habit that I've got myself into, and I feel revived afterwards, and I am more effective for the rest of the day. And sometimes I miss it out. And if I do, I can feel it. Sorry, that's the impact. If I don't power nap, I feel more tense. And the unwise thing that I do is a little bit similar to you, Tony, but I do it at night. So I decided that I would stop using my phone after 10 p.m. So I've put this special, I don't quite know how I did it, because Katie and Tony will know, as they know me well, IT is not my forte, but I managed to switch it off after 10 o'clock, between 10 and 7, and it grays everything out. But if you click on it, it says, would you like another 15 minutes? So I'm overriding that because I know that when I go to bed, if I manage to get into bed at 10 o'clock, then I need to stop looking at blue light. I need to just chill out, stop looking at my bank account in case I'm overdrawn, because that will worry me. But I don't, I keep overriding it. So that is an unwise strategy that I've got, that I've found that if I click, it'll say, would you like to override this? And I keep saying yes. So that was a wise decision that I have unwisely overridden. And what it does is it makes it harder to get to sleep, because instead of just chilling out, reading a book or something like that, I am still looking at my phone and doing life admin. So yeah, that's me.
Great, thank you, Jenny. Katie, would you like
Yeah.
to give a wise and an unwise strategy?
As you were talking, I was like thinking I have so many unwise ones that also include the scrolling. So I so relate to that, but I won't use that one because you both talked about scrolling. But a wise one is my early morning walks and stretching. Oh my God, I just love to stretch. even like now, I'm sitting and I'm cross-legged and I'm on the floor. And every so often I'll like change position and stretch when you can't really see that I'm doing it. And another wise one is breathing, which is, I wish I'd done breathing before. I mean, we all breathe, don't we? But I'm sure Tony will take us through some breathing techniques during these sessions. But I'm really, Tony's smiling because he's seen me grow and develop around my breathing, but I'm so much more in touch with my breathing and when I'm tense. So many unwise ones that I won't say them all, but a few is blaming my husband for if I'm like irritated, and he's not to blame. It's like everything else that's going on or me doing too much. So that's really unwise, and is unfair on him. Also taking control and trying to fix things for my daughter. And even though she's moved out, every so often, like I'll send a mother fix it type of email to her and her team of PAs, or I'll go into her house and that something will be wrong and I'll mention it. So I've got to stop doing that. So even though we've got a distance between us, because she's 8 minutes walk away, and I don't see her every day, I'm still trying to fix things. So that's really unwise. So I could go on, but I'm not, because I would just take over all the unwise things.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, so the point of doing this is not to, I just want to say at this point, the point of doing this is not to beat ourselves up for the unwise things that we do. It's just to kind of notice and to kind of bring our awareness to it. And what's really important is that we recognize that we're doing these things for a reason, and these things are serving a purpose. That's the first thing to understand. We're doing it for a reason, because it's too easy to kind of go, oh, Tony, you plonker, why are you scrolling? You know it's not good for you. You know, it's just stop doing it, just stop doing it. But that doesn't work. Doesn't work. And then what happens is I just get the risk is I start to feel depressed because I'm doing something that I know is not good for me and I can't stop it. So what we're doing here is we're just becoming aware of things that we do, and that's the first step. That's all we're doing here, and seeing if we can just notice those things and be kind to ourselves. So notice those things. Tony, you do that. Oh yeah, okay, I'm doing it for a reason, but you know, it's let's see if I can just be kind to myself in that, knowing that I do that. And maybe I could start to do it a little bit less. Or maybe when I notice I'm doing it, I can maybe just stop myself doing it a little bit earlier each time. So what I've found works is taking little steps, little things that I can do about it. And I hope that helps. Hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you for expanding on that, Tony. Can I just say as well, this is about not blaming ourselves. You're talking about being kind. There's no blame here. It's about accepting that we're all human, and actually it is possible to change. It doesn't matter, you know, if we're 20, as I think somebody is on the chat, or 65, which I am. It is still possible to change. Our brains are still plastic. Some of them are a little bit harder plastic because they've had an awful lot of wear, but it is possible to change, and we are all human, and we all have wise and unwise strategies, as Tony's just said, and kindness is a very hard-won part of our approach to ourselves. So do be kind if you can.
Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, and on that note, there's no judgment here from us about anything that you've noticed that we've shared. Just noticing it and just going, and also recognizing I do that as well, actually. Do that as well. Okay, so we're going to give you an opportunity now to share, if you would like to, any of your wise and unwise strategies with us, and you can do that in the chat, or you can come on to and share vocally, but I'm going to ask Katie to stop the record. So welcome back, everybody, from our second break. So this is the part of the workshop where we're going to be sharing with you a bit of information and some strategies as well. So things that we think that might help you with getting the balance right. So before we get into this, I'm just going to let you know that we have a toolkit. So it's called Anxiety First Aid Toolkit. And it's something that, and Jenny's showing a picture of it there. So we're going to be sending this out to everybody who's part of these workshops and with the recording as well. The strategies we're going to be sharing with you are in there. So if you want to read up more about them and go into more depth, then you can find more information there. We're just going to be summarizing the strategies here for you, just to give you a little taster of them. Okay, so what could help and how can we get the balance right? So strategies are just like habits, really. And we have good habits, helpful habits, and unhelpful habits. So this is about being aware of helpful habits or strategies, things that we can do to help us. One of the things that we found is really helpful is to understand a bit more about how our minds work. So understanding the science behind how our minds work. Most people find it really empowering, just understanding, so what's going on in there when I do this thing, and what's going on so what's happening inside my body and my mind when I'm feeling anxious. Because having some understanding of it can help to short circuit the anxiety. It's one of the things about anxiety is that it feeds itself. We can get stuck in a loop where we're just getting more and more anxious. We become anxious about being anxious. So understanding what anxiety is can help stop that from happening. So we're going to start off by looking at the science. So not too complicated. I'm not a scientist, so so I've kind of, I've tried to simplify this so that I can understand it better, mainly. Okay, so how does anxiety affect us? The first thing that I want to say is that anxiety is normal. Anxiety is an important part of our makeup. So it's part of our physiology and it's there for a reason. Now that's really important to understand because, and it can be hard to hear that, particularly if we're actually struggling with anxiety and we're feeling anxious a lot of the time. So that's called kind of chronic anxiety, when we're kind of stuck in anxiety. It can be hard to appreciate that anxiety has a purpose, but it does. So anxiety is really, it's there to act as a warning sign that there's danger around. The problem is when we get stuck in anxiety. So in a kind of natural state, like not in our society. So if we were living at one with nature and we had predators who wanted to come and eat us, you know, the anxiety is there to alert us that there's a predator, saber-toothed tiger, gonna come and eat us. So it's to give us the energy we need to run away or to fight. So you might have heard of the fight or flight response. And that's a key part of anxiety. So anxiety is there to help keep us safe. The problem is we can get stuck. So what we want, so a healthy place to be is kind of here. So circling between being laid back and having some stress, getting things done and being active, but not pushing ourselves to the point of past fatigue. So we might get to fatigue and go, oh, I need to rest. Jenny's naps. So what's Jenny's doing when she's having that nap, power nap, is she's consciously taking herself down that slope back into feeling laid back so that she can then get on with the day and feel energized and kind of work in this area. What happens when we have an anxiety is that what's happening in our bodies is that cortisol is being released, hormone cortisol is being released, and it's flooding our system, and that has an effect on our bodies. It shuts down parts of our body and it focuses on other parts, and that's so that we have the energy we need to run away or to fight. And that's fine for a short period of time. And cortisol, and when we're not in danger, the body will release the cortisol. And one of the signs of that happening is shaking. So you might be familiar with, might have experienced this yourself, when you've had a shock and something's happened and you've been in danger, and then afterwards you just start shaking. And that's the body's natural response to get rid of the cortisol and to kind of to release it. So if you're in a situation where someone's shaking after an incident, it's really good to allow them to shake and to release it. Okay, it's natural. It's the body is supposed to do that. The problem is that in modern society, the things that stress us out, often they're always there, like the system, for example. So, and the things that the pressure that's put on you guys as family carers in particular can be chronic, and it's like you deal with one thing and then there's another one, or there's a whole host of things that are on your shoulders all the time, and that's exhausting. And your body is doing its best to try and help you cope with that. But one of the things that happens is that cortisol is being released to give you the alertness and the energy you need to be able to deal with it. But it's exhausting, and your body suffers as a result of that because it's not being allowed to release. And what happens is things like your digestion is affected. So it has a whole host of things that impact on our health. So this is key to the connection between our mental health and our physical health. It's the release of cortisol, which is part of the stress response in the body. Something happens, we feel anxious, we feel stressed, the body releases cortisol, but then it just keeps releasing it. And that affects our health, and that can have long-term health implications. And we feel that in our bodies. We feel exhausted all the time. We're not able to sleep. We have problems with our digestion. We have problems with decision-making and with being calm and balanced, because the other thing that happens is that decision-making, problem-solving part of our brain shuts down, and we go into kind of emotional reactive mode. And then what happens over time, if we're stuck in that exhaustion, is we move into constant state of anxiety, panic, anger. And if we stay in there for long enough, we break down. This is exactly what happened to me about 10 years ago. I was stuck in this loop of exhaustion, anxiety, panic, anger, until the point where my body just said, no more, stop. And I just couldn't function anymore. So we don't want to push ourselves to that point of burnout. We want to get better at having more strategies that support us to move back into that kind of laid back state as often as we can. And sometimes we only have a few minutes, but even those few minutes, there are things that we can do to help ourselves. So as I said, what happens next in terms of the stress response, if we get stuck in that, is our mental health directly impacts our physical health. So I spoke about chronic anxiety, poor sleep affecting decision making. It also affects our relationships and the motivation to do things. We can isolate ourselves because we just, if I'm angry all the time, I don't want this, because it's more stressful oftentimes, you know, being with other people, because I don't feel like I can be myself. And then it's even more stressful because I have to pretend. And Jenny spoke about masking earlier. And that's something that happens a lot when our mental health is, when we're struggling with our mental health. And that can lead to depression. There's a strong link between anxiety and depression. And then there are direct physical impacts of this. Our blood pressure increases, our immune system is compromised, cortisol, because it's flooding our system, it's not being released, it damages our internal organs, because our internal organs are not getting the nutrients that they need. And all of this has an increased risk of long-term health conditions, including heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. There's a strong link between stress and cancer. So what can we do about it? What helps us to recover? What helps us to get back on track and to stay well? So I'm going to share with you one of the first resources from the toolkit, which is called resourcing. And then I'll hand over to my colleague, Jenny, to talk about breath work, I think. Is it, Jenny, that you're going to be talking about? Yeah. Okay, so resourcing. Resources are kind of just things that we have that help us. That's the way I think about it. So things that we have, or people that we have in our lives that help us. And as Helen said, just being here in this session, we hope is going to be helpful for you. And when we're better resourced, we find self-regulation easier. So self-regulation simply means not getting overwhelmed by emotions, by difficult emotions that we feel. So something happens and I might get angry about it. So instead of me getting overwhelmed with anger, I'm able to kind of feel that anger, but not get too overwhelmed by it, and maybe respond to it. So, because often we feel angry because something isn't as it should be, and we might need to take action. So if I'm better resourced, then I'm more likely to act in a wise way. So to act in a way that helps rather than react, because that often just makes things worse. So there are a couple of things that are in the toolkit for you to do. And I'm going to ask that you kind of make a start on it today. And the exercises are very simple. So it's just a case of making a list. And the first thing is just make a list of people in your life who can help. So people you know, who you can call on, or people who you can just talk to when things are getting tough. And the second is other resources that can help. So that will be activities that you do, maybe food that you eat that is helpful, places where you can go. So to start with, if you have a piece of paper, just draw a line down the middle, and on one side put people, and on the other side put other things. So activities, places, things. I'll just give you a few minutes just to make a start. Even if you just write 2 things down on each side. Just make a start with that. And then I'm going to share with you some of what's on my list. And that might give you some more ideas. Okay, so hopefully you've made a start on that. Keep going. So as I share with you what's on my resource list, just nick anything that's relevant to you, okay, and write it in as well. So here's what's on my list. Some family members, not all of them. And I know which family member is good for me to speak to for specific things. So if I'm kind of feeling, I just wanted to talk about how I'm feeling, I know who I can talk to about that. If there's practical things that are troubling me, I know who can talk to about that, and they're different people. Completely different people. It's not the same person. Some of my friends, and again, some friends I'll talk to about certain things, other friends about other things. And I know I've learnt from experience who I can talk to and who I can't, who will actually just make it worse. Not because they're, you know, they're not intending to make it worse. Their intentions are good, but they just don't have the right way. They're not saying the right things. You know, they might say things like, "Oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You know, just get over it," or "Just think positive." And I'm like, "Oh, do not say that to me." That's the worst thing you could say. Yeah, but you know, that's not the right person to speak to. My partner sometimes about certain things, about other things, no, not so much. My counsellor, really good. I'm really lucky that I have a counsellor. But again, it's like, you know, I don't earn a lot of money, but it's something that I prioritize because I know that it helps me to stay on track. Some work colleagues, and again, I'll speak to some work colleagues about certain things and others about other, and my coach as well. So my coach is someone who can help me to kind of make decisions and to kind of understand and be clear about what it is I need to do. My counsellor is more about my emotions, how I'm feeling and what's going on for me, what that means. Okay, so things, places and activities. So here's what's on my list. Actually, I need to add to this eating an orange, because that's a new one. But these are the things that pretty much always help me. Walking in the park or in nature, riding my Vespa, playing with my cat, listening to music, the radio, cooking, meditating, exercise, yoga, reading, journaling. Journaling I've found is so powerful. Being creative and playing, mainly with my cat actually. And eating oranges, I need to add to that. Okay. So what resources do? So this is how you can tell if it's a resource or not for you, or if it's the right resource. My resources help me to feel more in control of my anxiety. So when I'm starting to panic, my resources help me to calm down. They help me to move from a state of dysregulation when I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed with my emotions to a state of regulation. When I'm feeling got a better handle on my emotions, I can put them in perspective. I'm not overwhelmed by them. And what's happening in my brain, there's actually some stuff going on, is that there's the activity in my brain moves from the ancient brain, the reactive emotional brain, to the new part of the brain, the neocortex, the thinking brain. And that's the part of our brain that's asking questions, that's curious. And what we can do is we can use this to help us. So when we find ourselves stuck in anxiety, when I find myself stuck in anxiety, just asking myself some questions, using my journal to write down what's going on and then reflecting on that really helps me to kind of regulate myself and feel a bit better and not be so overwhelmed. Okay, so I think that's all I have to say about resources. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Jenny, who's going to talk about breathwork.
Thanks, Tony. Right, breathwork. We had a short example of breathwork right at the beginning when we did a bit of grounding right at the beginning. And there's so much, although our grounding was mainly observing our body in that case, but there's so much to breathwork. And it's really powerful because it can override our nervous system. And I will speak a little bit more about our nervous system in the next slide. But the way that we use our breath, if we use it intentionally, it can actually transform how we're feeling. And when our feelings change, our thoughts also change. So quite a few of us have spoken about feeling things like angry and lost and sorry, I'm paraphrasing here, but all over the place and unable to change. But one of the very basic things is if we can come back to our breath, it is actually a very powerful way. I'm just going to read a quote here, and it says, "Breathwork is a wonderful tool to become familiar and comfortable with, as we can turn to it anytime and in any place." That's true. Our breath is always with us, isn't it? Making friends with our breath and by proxy, our internal experience can over time give us a safe place to visit when we experience hostility in the world. A safe place to visit really speaks to me because when I remember in the relative chaos of every day to come back to my breath, it really does feel like a safe place. It grounds me and it enables me to actually, just calm a little bit. And the in-breath, our in-breath is the active breath. So as we breathe in, it makes us more active, and the out-breath is more of the relaxing breath. So you can actually do breath work that really focuses on both of those, that either helps you really to relax or energizes you, and it depends if you need which state you need. To be quite honest, I never need to be energized. I'm always anxious. So I use a lot of out breath and a lot of coming back to my breath and breathing very slowly out. But if you're the sort of person who needs a bit of zhuzhing up sometimes, then there are exercises. One of them is called Breath of Fire, and the name, the clue's in the name. And that's breath has been used for thousands of years in yoga and in meditative practices. So could we, oh yes, sorry, Tony, I need to just say that chest breathing is when we're breathing high in our chest, and it tends to be when we're anxious. So you may notice, if you keep just thinking about your breath when you have a moment, and you will find that you are breathing in your chest, which is high when you're anxious, and if you can change the breathing to your belly, you will find that that will actually calm you down. It'll balance and regulate you. Thank you, Tony. Could I have the next slide, please? So this is the science bit. Our body has an autonomic nervous system, and there are two sides to it. Now, this does look quite complicated, but basically, our sympathetic nervous system is when we are alert. It's we fix, fight, and we flight. And along the side of the various physical differences that happen when our sympathetic nervous system is triggered. We increase our breathing rate, our oxygen goes to our muscles, and it's when we take a sharp in-breath. And this is our fight flight that you're probably really familiar with. And it primes us to escape from situations. And the thing about our modern life is we are in our sympathetic nervous system, our fight flight, quite a lot more than we need to be, because life is quite stressful. And it's a very good strategy, if we can, to change over to our parasympathetic autonomic nervous system. Sorry, it's all such a mouthful, isn't it? But our parasympathetic nerves are the ones that help with our recovery, and they kick in when we sleep, and also for our digestion. That it's associated with the out breath, and the idea is that we balance our breathing in and out. With the parasympathetic nervous system, I really like the analogy that the body can do its housework. So if we go into parasympathetic, which we will do if we rest, like me going into my power nap, and instead of being on high alert, I go into a rest situation and my food can digest, for example. Because if we're constantly in a high alert situation, then we often get a lot of stomach disorders, because our body never has the chance to actually digest its food properly. And then if we also have difficulties with sleeping and insomnia, that can be the same difficulty. We can have a lot of stomach problems. And I have had a lot of stomach problems through my life from being in the sympathetic nervous system for a lot of time with a lot of anxiety. And some of you too may recognize that. So breathing is really normal. We do it all the time without thinking about it. And some people think, oh, really? You know, why are we concentrating on the breath? I can breathe. I breathe all the time. And that is very true. But the power of this is actually being aware of our breath. And then we can choose how we use our breath to help ourselves. Thank you. So, yes, and now it says let's practice, and we haven't really got time to do much practice, Tony, but we will just do 2 minutes, okay, to run over for 2 minutes. So the same as we did at the beginning of the session, could you just settle yourself in your chair, or if you're lying down, settle yourself lying down, and just come back to your body. So we spend a lot of time in our heads. So please just come back to your body. And notice, can you feel your hips on the chair or your back on the bed if you're lying down? Can you feel your thighs on the back of the chair? Can you feel your knees? Can you just be aware of your knees and your calves and your feet? And can you take a breath into your belly? So either a breath through your mouth or through your nose, whichever suits you best. And imagine that you are actually sending it down into your hips, down through your legs, into your feet. I am aware this might sound a little bit woo-woo, but when you get used to it, it really does help. So take a breath into your chest. If you can, let it go into your belly, a breath in, and gently direct it down into your stomach, into your buttocks, into your legs, into your feet. And then take another breath and let it gently go up into your head. So it will start with your chest and it will go down into your belly as you breathe in. You may be able to feel your belly expanding, and you may be able to feel it going up into your head. My head is feeling full of thoughts at the moment. And then let it out and see if the breath can bring that feeling down through your neck, through your shoulders, through your torso, and down into your hips to ground you. The idea is that we are settling and grounding. And I'll just leave you to do that for a couple of times. It does take practice. And when you're ready, just gently come back to the room. If you've got your eyes closed, then just gently open your eyes and come back into wherever you are, into the group. Welcome back. Okay, thank you. And I will pass over to Tony for the wrapping up.
Thanks, Jenny. So I want to ask you all to think of one thing that you can do now that you know what you know about yourself and that you've heard from us about resources and about breath work. So what is one small thing that you will do differently, or something new maybe, to help you to get the balance right? And I've put here to write it down and also to share in the chat. And that's an invitation to you. And there's a reason for this. And it's not just because I'm curious and nosy. The reason is there's science behind this. So the reason is we know from psychology and from lots of research that when we write things down, we're more likely to do it. It's why we write shopping lists, because it goes into our brain. It's kind of written somewhere, and the act of writing it down, it does something to us, and it makes us more likely to actually do it. And the other thing, the reason why I invite you to share, is that what's more exciting is that when we tell other people that we're going to do something, we're even more likely to do it. So, and we're not quite sure why, but some people think it's to do with kind of an accountability factor, or it might be that when we know we've told other people, we're like, oh, well, I've got to do it now because I've just told Katie and Jenny and Tony, so I've just got to do it. Yeah, but it works. It makes a difference. But it's completely up to you if you share it or not. But at least write it down. So you might have a list of things that you're interested in, or that you kind of think, that will help me. And if you do, then prioritize them. So choose one and say, I'm going to at least do that. And if you're struggling, then I'm going to give you some suggestions. Have a look at the Anxiety Toolkit. Read up on some of the strategies in there. just for 5 minutes. Spend 5 minutes looking through the toolkit. Might be something that you could do. Look into breath work or yoga or something to help you relax. There's lots of videos on YouTube about breathing that you could try. So Katie, you're going to stop and give yourself time during the day to breathe for 2 minutes. Fab. Fab. Are you going to have a fixed time of the day to do that? How are you going to help yourself? How are you going to remind yourself to do that?
Like in between things when there is a break, but usually I would just carry on doing things, but there's like a natural break.
Okay, great. Can I share with you a simple strategy that I use to help myself remind myself? So I used to be really, really good, i.e. code for bad, at giving people advice, trying to fix people at work. And a really wise colleague said to me one day, do you know, Tony, you need to stop doing that. And what you need to, maybe what you could do is just write down a bit of paper. Whenever I got the urge to fix, stop, pause, and think before you do that. And I just wrote it down and I put it above my computer as a reminder to do that. So maybe just writing down a bit on a sticky note and putting it on your computer to remind yourself, pause instead of filling in the time with stuff, pause and breathe for 2 minutes. I don't know if that might help or not. I noticed that that's an example of me stepping into fix there. Up to you whether or not, I don't know whether that might help or not. You might be okay anyway, and you might just, yeah, know to do that. So Jenny, you'll stop overriding your 10 o'clock curfew on your mobile, as you know it's not good for you. Still keep your mobile in the bedroom as you use it every night for meditation and relaxation when you wake at night. Right. Okay.
Yeah, it feels like it would be sensible, Tony, just not have my mobile in my bedroom, but I do use it every single night. I have an app that has meditations on it, so I need it at night, actually, in the middle of the night when I wake. So, but I do need to do that. And I feel now that I must do it because the idea is that we do check up on ourselves the next session, isn't it? So obviously, if you put something down and you don't hold to it, or if you write it down now for yourselves and you don't hold to it, that's fine. We've said several times this session that, you know, it's tiny steps, but I know that when I reach for my phone at 10:10 tonight, I will think, look, I've only just said that I'm not going to do this, and it will stop me. So yeah, thank you for making me write it down, Tony, and share it.
You're welcome. Okay, so we have a bit of time now. If anybody has any questions, or if anybody wants to share anything, say anything, so maybe we can pause the recording at this point.